No one knows what's going on at the moment. Everyone can be an expert, and they all claim something. It's gonna be the future. In this world, how can you know who's right? And but there is something for you as an individual survive and thrive on this planet, and that's by finding yourself, and it's by just be critical thinking and doing the right thing that you believe, and you can feel the peace within when you make that decision. And I found that so powerful and critical.
Hello, and welcome to Love as a Business Strategy, a podcast that brings humanity to the workplace. We're here to talk about business, but we want to tackle topics that most business leaders shy away from. We believe that humanity and love should be at the center of every successful business. As always, I'm your host, Jeff Ma, and I'm here to have conversations and hear stories with real people about real businesses in the real world. And my guest today is Isabella Wang, and she is a futurist, a social entrepreneur, and a speaker and an author, all kinds of things. But importantly, she's an expert in digital transformation, but she's on a mission to humanize the world by leveraging the power of that technology. And Isabella demonstrates her forward-thinking approach in her work as a partner at the Creative House, a creative digital company, and as well as being a board member and operations director at the New York Marketing Association. I got to know her through her role as a strategic advisor for AKFI, which is the Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute. And she's also the author of The Digital Mind of Tomorrow: Rethink, Transform, and Thrive in a Fast-Changing and Brutal Digital World. I love that title. I'm excited to talk to her as she is the leader in the movement of change that aligns very much with mine, which is to bring humanity back to the workplace. So I'm excited that you're here. Thanks for coming, Isabella. How are you today?
I'm equally excited. Feel so looking forward to this conversation that we're both just come naturally unprepared and see how the flow goes.
Yes, I'm Isabella before the show has seen my pre-show routine, and she is rightfully pointing out I'm never prepared for these, and that's what makes it so great.
Absolutely.
Um, but but Isabella, I do want to start with obviously just centering around you. If you could just paint a picture of your passion for me, if like what brings you to where you are today.
Not to be silly, but I think since I was little, this goal, this vision has been vivid, or it's been there. It sounds silly if I say it, just bluntly. I want to change the world. I want to do something to change the world. And for everyone, this might sound like, oh, it's none of my business. Are you crazy? What can you do as a girl? But now that picture is getting more and more clear, and I actually, in my core, I also mentioned that to you, consider myself an entrepreneur. I'm not just saying that because of I call myself entrepreneur. I actually didn't even know the word entrepreneur before I behave, or I would say appreciate those qualities that entrepreneur be possessed. For example, like 10 years ago, before I was even graduated, I would look to those things or events or people that it's in that world, and I didn't even know how to say entrepreneur properly yet. And just those, yeah, I'm serious. Entrepreneurship, entrepreneur. I was like entrepreneur. And then, but the things they do, the spirit they possess, and the calling that they're advocating, it just touched me. And it wasn't a common thing to do. To be honest, most people, like my friends, will be looking for jobs, and they will wake up early in the morning, take on the subway, while Isabella is at home checking some random events or speaking conferences. It feels odd, to be honest, but I don't know. I just felt like that's something I need to do. I want to pursue that goal. And so throughout the years, that has been coming together, little by little, meeting the right people, mentoring me, getting to the right community, building community, little small project, big projects, businesses, and now to this point, writing the book based on my observation of the society, and I just can see things started to coming together.
Amazing. And I know that you call yourself a social entrepreneur. Can you explain what that means to you to be a social entrepreneur?
Yeah. Um, from it's obvious from the world something relates to the society. For social, I think I actually recently became clear about that to call myself a social entrepreneur, since I found myself very tied to the human relationship and as a community living in this world. And in a worldly term, it's the society, right? The social connections between the people. I want to amplify the value about this connection between each one of us, not necessarily just to solve a pain or a critical problem and then it happened to generate a lot of money. I really want to emphasize on this collectively, holistically coexisting community that we all belong to, and how can I create something, bring out value out of that system. So to me, it's more on this social perspective of the value, not necessarily just to solve a problem or to make money. And it all comes down to the human nature, the core of humanity. And that's what I always value the most.
Awesome, awesome. And I have to ask, I guess, if you don't mind, can you share
Mhm.
kind of your a part of your journey or the connection between technology and all the things you just said, right?
Yeah,
So there's often a disconnect and everyone's story is a little bit different. I'm curious,
yeah.
where does that overlap for you and how did that happen?
Great question. And you just open up our conversation. I can see very positively. So, from technology to what I'm doing, uh, long story short, it's because of the work I do with digitalization, digital marketing, and all the things that I can be able to see on the frontier of what's happening right today in the world with technologies. And I can see there's a huge missing gap and not being addressed or not to being paying much attention to is the human aspect of it. It's like how these things actually serve us or where we're heading with these things, why we're doing these things. At the end, we want a happy life for everyone, right? As a human being, as an individual. But I see it's not going to that direction. More specifically, like people are being blinded by what technology really do to them in the daily life, and how to be able to do critical thinking in an overloaded information age, and how younger generations are indulged in the heavily digitalized society that they don't possess those human connection anymore. There's so many, again, this social things that I observed, and it just bothers me, I guess, in the core. And top of it, the pandemic happened, and I see this massive transition from offline to online, and there's something you can just see it's irreversibly, changed. And then while a lot of people are still thinking, oh, once the pandemic is over, we'll be back to the norm, they call it norm, or once or something like, but their mind is not catching up of what's really going on. Some of the things are just irreversible, and all of this, I know it's a little bit everywhere, that's why it's complicated. It just triggered me to start shifting my attention to what the technology is really doing to us as a human society. And that started the idea for me to write this book. And as I'm writing, it had 100,000 times shifts and turns, and eventually, after a lot of painful self-reflection and questioning and researching, I came to the conclusion to focus on the path to to focus on the humanity side of technology development, not just the technology itself.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Can you can you share some of that you said painful
yeah.
introspection and self kind of addressing yourself. Is there any that you could share with us?
Absolutely. Manuel is one of the key person that actually pushed me to go down that road, to think what I'm really want to talk about. Um, First of the things, it's when I first started writing the book, I was like everyone else, focusing on the business part and those jargons, buzzwords, and the trendy topics, and digitalization, metaverse, Web3. And when I was writing, I just felt so stuck. I am like, what I'm writing about and where this really taking me. And when Mawa read my book, and he was like, no, 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 Isabella, this is not you. Are you sure this is your book? There's a bunch of
For the audience, who's Manuel?
who's
Just
Manuel? Um,
yeah, I know Manuel, but who is he
Manuel
for
is
the audience?
the executive director at Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, a nonprofit, the first nonprofit to bridging the gap between ESG, digital transformation, and sustainability. And funny enough, Manuel, I think he stumbled into my website before I even finished my book. And somehow, I see this beauty of the universe. He reached out, and I usually don't get too engaged, but I respond. And then we start connect, and he became the mentor while I was writing this book. And voluntarily, and also in return, I started trying to advise him on AKFI, and that's how the relationship started to build. Yeah,
Got it. Sorry for the tangent. Sorry. Just
no worries. Yes, but back to the story. So he can see that I'm into something else, but I'm writing a completely different thing because I want to follow the trends. I want to become the part of the common topic to get popular, to make people, remember me. But that's not the case because that's not me. And I wouldn't be remembered or get popular because I wrote a book with a lot of buzzwords or looks trendy. He made me realize that. And he just said, what you really want to do, it's something on the human side. That's all I can tell you. And you go figure out what you want to write in terms of the technology and the humanity. And that's the I wouldn't say painful, maybe that's the wrong words, but the painful is more like when I get stuck and I don't know what's wrong. And after he pointed out that, it's a hard decision to make also. Like, are you gonna just follow your heart? That's a reason, a real example to show. Are you gonna follow your heart, or are you gonna just follow a path that you know it's gonna work? You know people are gonna follow by a tons of your book because you're talking about trendy stuff. And as Isabella, of course, I made the decision to follow my heart. And it's a huge relief. And as I mentioned, and things start to come together once I tune into what I'm really passionate and what I really wanted to do. And the book is done.
That's awesome. Always good to know that you have no regrets when working on something that big and that big of a project. So
Yes.
what ended up in that
Mhm.
book? You followed your heart and
Yes.
now it's out there. What is tell us about the book. What is it centered around?
Yeah, so the book, um, mainly as you read about the subtitle very well, to rethink, to transform, and to face this fast changing, I call it brutal digital world, meaning you really need to think about your future more, not just to rely on a third party or like some educational system or another credible expert to telling you what's going on. Because when I was writing the book, the truth is I was also interviewing tons of people on purpose. I want to get verification. I don't want to just be a self-imaginary. And one thing I came to realize is no one knows what's going on at the moment. Everyone can be an expert, and they all claim something. It's going to be the future. In this world, how can you know who's right? And but there is something for you as an individual survive and thrive on this planet. And that's by finding yourself, and it's by, just just be critical thinking and doing the right thing that you believe, and you can feel the peace within when you make that decision. And I found that so powerful and critical. And okay, that's a little bit back to my book. And back to my book, what I'm really doing is to simply sharing Isabella's opinion of, okay, what I observed technology has done to us as a person, to as a business, and as a society as a whole. For example, artificial intelligence and this fear of machine learning, this fear of metaverse, or human labor is going to be replaced, and all this kind of crisis we're facing. And this book is actually more talking to people who wants to make a change in this chaotic age, to how to be not to disturbed by the distraction, and how to, back to my theory, follow your intuition, follow that flow based, natural way of living, and to counterbalance with this chaotic world. So that's, and there's a lot of, I summarize it on a very abstract high level, but there's some resources and conversations, interview clips I've collect together to further elaborate of what I just tell everyone, to make you understand, why Isabella think like this, why she believe younger generations needs more guidance, and they're in some sort of thinking degeneration, things like that. Yeah.
Got it. Very interesting.
Thank you.
I I I have to, of course, now bring the conversation over to, love,
Mhm.
essentially,
Mhm.
as the show is aptly named. So when I think of business and how really there is no business without technology now. Technology obviously is at the center of really everything that's being, done in business, and it's either a small, medium, or usually large part of every business's success and progress and evolution.
Yes.
So, um, what in that sense are you seeing in terms of the importance of love, or
Mhm.
if you just want to call it culture or human
Mhm.
interaction, or any of those elements,
Mhm.
um, as it pertains to business and by extension technology, right? What are you seeing um, stand out from your perspective as important in terms of culture, um, and humanizing of things in the business world?
Right. So I feel like now, when I was writing the book, um I mentioned in the preface that I think society has two top pressing issue on top of everything: the climate, it's burn, whatever, the sun, the all that. Number one, I see it's a lack of trust. It's not just a lack of trust, it's no trust. And number two, it's a lack of clear purpose. I add clear here, not just purpose. It seems that we have some sort of purpose, no, but not clear. We're trying to take a bet or take a chance. And without trust, I just don't see things can happen at all. It can happen, but it's not a real thing that is happening to change, to bring humanity to the next level, to uplifting us. And that relates to what you guys doing, love as a business, and why we need to tighten this culture thing into business, into anything we're doing, because I see that as a foundation. We're so good at being, blindfolded by the superficial things. If it's a money generated, or if we're smiling in front of people, it means we're good. That's absolutely wrong. And that's so hard for people to face the reality, to see the what's really valuable underneath those superficial cover up, in my opinion. And I want people to be more to into this genuine um reflection, not to be blindfolded. And this is hard. And so to me, it's very important. But if we don't get to this fundamental level, we're just going round and round and not going anywhere. And that's what I see it's going on right now with all these fast technology development. I was just listening to amazing podcast by a very known person, John Jaron. I'm very bad with name, and he's like a philosopher, American computer scientist, and he's very well known. And he's a huge believer in culture and in love, in philosophy, and he doesn't believe in those technology. He's like, yeah, artificial intelligence, awesome, such a new innovation. I heard it back in 1984. So basically, he's saying all these things we're talking about, it's been going on, but we make it sounds like it's new. We're just trying to make some cover up to make us feel like we're progressing, in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you really hit me with the assessment of like your top two kind of issues. I've never
Mhm.
heard them framed so clearly that way, but I have to agree. And I think trust really stands out to me as an issue. What are you seeing, I
Mhm.
guess, in terms of the problem when it comes to trust, and also what do you think caused it, or I think what do you think is s- leading us to have, as you said, no trust?
Is this superficial world? I think we're all pursuing some sort of materialistic, and it just the relationship is not genuine. It's not genuine anymore, and everything is built on this kind of philosophy, I would say. So that's like the foundation of not being able to trust each other. Everyone is faking it.
Mm,
Maybe a good example is the social media. If you look at their profile, this is a very cliche example. It's not them. It's not. We need to show our your favorite world vulnerability. What's really going on? And when entrepreneur or successful people is out there talking about their success, that's not the real story. And people are believing this false statement, and they get even more miserable.
well, let me ask this:
Hmm.
what in your opinion
Yeah.
is the solution? Like, how how do we gain trust or bring trust back to this world, or to a business, or even just to a group of people? How do we fix that?
I believe being a genuine human, it's the foundation. Like be genuine, be yourself, and don't get lost in this fuzzy uh, crowded world. It's the first step. To be more maybe practical is to keep distance with this digital device, to to leave space for yourself, for your mind. I really believe human has the potential to course correction themselves just by themselves. Not, you don't need another source to tell you, Isabella, read this, Isabella, you should follow that. I really believe we have this universe power somehow when we're really having a space, the time, the peaceful moment for ourselves, and to course correction our behavior, our thoughts. And that start from being yourself, really facing yourself, and not to busy seeking anything external or to follow another trend. And that's what I believe.
Do you have any direction for people who find this? I know you're talking about a lot of this stuff at this global cultural movement level. If you were to zoom in on something that, you know, people can take away for themselves. So for instance, if they work with teams, or if they're a leader, or a CEO or an entrepreneur within their ecosystem, what would be your, I guess, recommendation for them when it comes to all these problems and how to fix them?
The trust, the loss of self, or in
Just in general, right? In general, in
Mhm.
terms of the human element lacking in technology. Like I mentioned before, you know, technology is a large factor. You're either working in technology or with technology when you
Mhm.
talk about business today.
Mhm.
And so, um, you're pointing out a lot of these elements of like the human element gone
Okay.
missing
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah.
How do business owners, leaders, professionals, anyone working in and around technology,
Okay.
what do they need to do? What do they need to look out for?
Okay. So I just had a talk last week. I think I mentioned that at the panel. And when I talk about what's my advice, I want to uh clarify first. It's very hard because of the big environment, how we're stuck in this capitalism dominate world. I will admit it's very hard. It's not something, oh, just be yourself and listen to your employee and be a human. That can happen. I say that not to say this is not possible. I say that just for us to be aware what kind of thing we're getting into, and also to be proud that you're one of those that who are willing to take this lead, because there are people out there like this. And like last week at the panel, all of those speaking amazing speakers, they're one of them. And obviously they have an entrepreneurial background, so these kind of characters really contribute in tackling these kind of challenges we're facing today. Is to You first need to be step up, just not to be afraid to be one of those odd leader. Even it's hard, I know. You need to lose, you need to maybe even get fired, I don't know, but I believe you can get a huge reward down the road. And there are people around you. Just we need to I was thinking about that. We need an ecosystem. We need to connect those people so you're not feeling alone. And you mentioned that a few people can make a huge impact. So we don't need that, like hundreds of leaders, conscious leaders like that. We just need a decent amount of them. But you have to be them first in order to identify or attract them. Otherwise, you're just being one of those old school corporate leader as always, if you don't step out first. So I see that first step, it's very hard. So the saying that I'm not to being, not optimistic, I really suspect there will be a handful of them will I'm done with this corporate world. I'm gonna do something meaningful in my last few years. I trust there are a few people like that, and that's literally my advice. On top of everything, I wouldn't even mention, oh, be listening to your people, open-minded. I know that's not gonna happen. Like, even you do it, but if you're not really in core being that person, is not going to change anything. And but being surrounded, when you become that and you're surrounded with a group of people like that, something can happen. And that's what I see from those speakers I talked with. They step out, they never be afraid, they embrace risk and failure, and they're living the life they always want to have.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more, and you're absolutely right. I think you hit the
It's a very weird talk, I know.
no, I
Not
mean, but you hit the nail on the head because
sugarcoating.
I mean, it's something we wrestle with all the time in the work that I do. That's the hardest part to really get people to understand is that it is very hard. And what we're looking for is not a process change or a tool change or any one type of specific action that people take, but it actually requires a change in individuals, and not just about individuals, but within individuals, right? It has to be a newfound motivation for many, a newfound calling that you kind of mentioned earlier. Is it has for most of us been set as the capitalist kind of motivation that we're just locked into. Greed is good, and whether we kind of say it out loud or not, we're driven by those factors more than any. And it's a very different space to get people to see the value of human value, right? Human gain within these areas where just kind of what I always call it is like a personal case for change, which is what is it in your life that will motivate you to make a change in yourself for the benefit of others, not just for, monetary gain or power or status and things like that? What else might drive you? And I think that's been the hardest journey. Like you said, I agree with your first step. It's like it's finding that, finding the courage to not only find that, but then start taking steps to pursue it. And that's, I
Yeah.
think, easier said than done, right?
Yes, and it reminds me, I shouldn't be so, hardcore. Actually, I would encourage those leaders to start feeling the taste of being stepping on. Not like all of a sudden, you can quietly doing within yourself first. You know what you did is different than before. Maybe before you would just focus on number, or you would do decisions, but you slowly starting to incorporate that humane side, or you follow more your conscious heart. I don't want to be exact. It's going to be too detailed if to be exact, but you know what I'm talking about. If you start following that conscious heart, I think you can feel the reward feelings, and it will encourage you more once you taste it. And little by little you step up more, you step up more, and it becomes part of you. Maybe that will help, but you have to be aware to do that to begin with. Yeah, a lot of us maybe think, oh, it just have to be some overnight step and to execute, or it's not like that, in my opinion. Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, I think we're on the exact same page with a lot of these things, which is why just nodding and smiling. So this is a lesson that I don't know if we ever get across well enough, no matter how many times we say it. The power of like true
Yeah.
introspection,
Uh-huh.
for people to really take a hard look at ourselves is, I'm still working on it. It's still a struggle, but many people haven't tried or practiced in their entire adult life, right? Like something where as soon as you find success, whether in a role or in a job, whatever, um, it's locked in. It's much easier to kind of just, let's just repeat and stay in this lane of what works. And I
Absolutely.
think it's so hard to pause and say, you know what, maybe I am part of a problem. Maybe I am not as good as I think I am. Maybe I am creating issues that I don't see. And
Yeah.
I don't know that the average person is able to easily access that place, that is so powerful if we do.
Absolutely. I know it's hard. It's, yeah, the topic. Well, you guys talk about love and all that. I'm sure you have more practical way to guide people to how to experience the progress, or how to actually do it. I really need to come down to that level in better explaining and better guiding people, not just on the overstatement. So yeah, I agree. It's complex. It's definitely complex, because
Mhm.
overall, all these things we're talking about, technology, digital age, and it's so complex. It's not because, oh, it's just good or bad. It's both. To me, it's always about the balance point of both. It's not just, oh, I'm just gonna go for the good, forget about the bad. I think that's where we're not being able to do with technology as well. We're going one direction, extreme direction, and we're lack of, observation, or like you said, reflection on the other side, on the human side, or the downside of the technology. We What we really need to do is just to find a balance, and maybe to find in a slower pace, but it's very hard because we're already on the racing road. And but I believe there's a hope, and there is hope if we all be more conscious and aware, like we're talking now.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I'm very hopeful, of course. So, Isabella, unfortunately, we run out of time. I have actually more questions, but maybe we'll talk again. We'll talk again, maybe soon. But in the meantime, can you share I guess if people want to get your book or hear more about you, what they can do to connect with you.
Sure. My book, the book is called The Digital Mind of Tomorrow. You can definitely search online or pop up on Amazon, Google Book, things like that. For me, I'm very active on LinkedIn. Just search my name, Isabella, Wang, and you will find me on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat with me.
Mhm.
I know you mentioned that we operate at a little bit of different levels, and I think it's so important in terms of like you need people up in blue sky thinking, you need people up in the mid range, you people down at the ground level working at all things, and I just feel so connected to like your mission, your ideas, and everything. And I hope that we can continue to like work together and bring humanity back to the
Absolutely.
workplace.
Absolutely, Jeff. I appreciate the great question, and it actually haunting me now about trusting. But I will find out. I really appreciate this talk. It's a self-reflection even to me. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you to our listeners as well. Please continue supporting us. We really appreciate it. And you can check out our best-selling book, Love is a Business Strategy, in the same places that you can find Isabella's books. And please subscribe, rate the podcast, tell a friend, and continue kind of spreading that love. And we will see everybody next week. Thank you so much for tuning in.